Okay.
He's just trying to tell us.
All right, guys. I'm gonna try to give you some background over the last couple of years. I've been working on this and where we've moved to so far. Okay. There's a couple of options at the end. Three options, actually, at the end. They were advanced to you in that letter that I gave everybody. Did everybody in this room, at least, I see, got that letter? You find it informational and informative?
Yes.
We're going to go over some of the stuff from way back from the beginning of this whole thing, back in January 20, when we hired the Burge to look at that system and see what they came up with. It took about 9 months for them to finally come up with a plan or proposal to plan. The two that I put in that letter are exactly what their recommendations were. But I'll start a little bit from the beginning of after the 8 or 9 months that they worked on this, what they found. So this is a letter right from LaBerge. LaBerge Group has reviewed the Macey Lane Water System to assist in determining the low water pressures being experienced by some customers. Pressure monitoring was conducted from June 9th to July 19th, 2020. Readings were taken at the hose bib of the home located at 79 Macey Lane from June 9th to July 8th, and at the blow-off hydrant from July 10th to July 19th. Evaluation data for each of the pressure gauge locations was obtained via field survey, as well as the elevation of the pressure reducing valve, or the PRV, located in Macey Lane in order to determine pressure gain or loss due to elevation. The pressure available to the Macey Lane system at the pressure relief valve was recorded by the pressure relief gauge to be at 55 psi. The town of Plattsburgh has reported that the PRV is currently set at 56 psi, which is generally consistent with the gauge reading. Evaluation data. Evaluation data for each pressure gauge location, as well as the evaluation of the pressure reducing valve located in Macey Lane, was obtained via field survey in order to determine pressure gain or loss due to the elevation. The relevant elevation data is as follows. At the pressure reducing valve, the top of the pipe, 287.2 pounds. Blow-off hydrant, 303.3. 79 Macey Lane hose bib, 308.0. Thermostat pressure. The static pressure is the maximum pressure that is experienced in the water system when no water is being used. So basically, they're talking about when the waters flow at peak, and then a static pressure when basically hardly any water or no water is being used. In the case, it is based upon the pressure reducing valve setting of 56 psi and adjusted by the difference in elevation. Since the Macey Lane pressure reducing valve is lower than the two locations where pressures were or was recorded, the elevation differences results in lower static pressures at those 2 points. So at those 2 points, the PRV was at 56 psi, blow-off hydrant was at 49 psi, and 79 Macey, where the hose gauge, again, that was at a house resident, 47 psi. I won't get into the table because that's just a bunch of grit, okay? I'll spare you that. I'll get you to where you got to be. Basically, it says the table below presents a minimum, maximum, average pressure experienced at the hose bib at 79 Macey Lane. The pressure at this location is affected by available pressure in the water main. The size and the condition of the service ladder and the size of the condition of the plumbing within the home. Note that the raw data for the pressure at this location indicated pressure rising as high as 110 psi. This is likely attributed to hot water expansion in the home. Water service is equipped with a check valve for analysis purposes. These high pressure readings have been discounted. The data indicates that the minimum pressure experienced at that location range for approximately 21 to 28 approximately 21 to 28 psi. When reviewing the lowest pressure reading for each day at the location, it was noted that for the 5-minute recording interval just prior to low reading, the pressure was significantly higher. The difference in pressure ranged from 11 psi to as much as 30 psi in the 5-minute interval after the lowest pressure reading. The pressure rebounded back to the previous level in nearly all cases. This is indicative of pressure losses through the house service lateral, meter, and interior plumbing, as water is being used for short term. So they're saying as you turn your water on in your house, you get those normal fluctuations. Okay. Blow-off hydrant. The table below presents the minimum, maximum, and average pressure experienced at blow-off hydrant. The pressure at the location is affected only by the available pressure in the water main. Again, I'll spare you the big chart. As indicated in the table, the low pressure is fairly consistent, ranging between 29.5 and 31.7 psi. Assuming the water main is 5 feet deep and the pressure gauge set at 2.8 feet above grade, the low pressure in the water main ranges between 32.9 and 35.1 at the location. The minimum permissible pressure in the water main, except for fire flow conditions, where it can drop no lower than 20 psi, is 35 psi. At the hydrant location, the low pressures recorded are just slightly less than required. Water system configuration. Based on the plans provided, the water system is comprised of 6 and 4-inch PVC pipe and possibly a section of 4-inch asbestos cement pipe. The systematic plan of the existing system is attached, indicating approximate pipe lengths and the material. So if you look at that map you have in front of you, that's basically what they're saying, the lengths, the best I can tell what they are. It has been reported that the upper end of this system is not completely looped as presented in the subdivision plans, resulting in a single 2,780 foot long dead end, as measured from the pressure relief valve, leaving 2 dead ends. The location is indicated on the systematic map. Again, you'll see where it goes down and it dead ends, and there is no return. It does not loop the system. Every time you loop a system, you gain volume and you get a little bit of pressure because you're being able to draw off of both sides of that pipe. In your case, the main is a dead head down to the cul-de-sac, and then the cul-de-sac dead head about 475 feet from coming back in. Okay? The data indicates that the minimum pressures experienced at this location range from approximately 21. Oh, did I just lose myself? Water system configuration. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn the page. I lost my mind for a minute. All right, the 47 homes along the main are generally evenly spaced. Water system demand. The water supply for the Macey Lane Water District is the town of Plattsburgh. The supply is metered at a meter vault located in the Irish Settlement Road. No other users are connected to the water main from the water to that water district. The district has 47 water customers. Based upon water meter reading data from the master meter for monitoring period, the maximum daily flow was 6,962 gallons, with the maximum hourly demand on the system being 302 gallons per hour, or an average of flow of 5 gallons per minute in the peak hour. This flow rate includes water used in the individual homes as well as any system leakage. Using a peak factor of 4, the peak flow rate is estimated to be 20 gallons per minute. Instantaneously, peaks may be higher, but of short duration, because somebody might be using more water than normally they would use. Summertime, when you start, a bunch of people start watering lawns and stuff like that. Based on 47 customers, the average use per customer on this peak day was just under 150 gallons. System head losses. Pressure in the water system is reduced based upon the amount of water flowing through pipes and fittings. For the purpose of analysis, the following assumptions have been utilized. The entire peak flow, hourly flow rate of 20 gallons per minute is extended to the analysis points of 79 Macey Lane and the blow-off hydrant. This assumption is conservative, since in reality the use will be spread out over the length of the pipe with flow rates and associated pressure losses reducing along the way. It is also assumed that a portion of the water system from the intersection to the blow-off was not installed and that the blow-off is located at a dead end again. The pipe roughness coefficient of 100% has been used. The pressure losses for each analysis point are tabulated below. So a 79 Macey Lane 4-inch pipe, 1,380 feet. It was at 40 psi. I figured the elevation 9 feet different from the head coming in. 6-inch PVC pipe, 935 feet. Again, elevation about I should say 0.018 feet, and it was a pressure of 0.03. Total pipe losses approximately 0.98 feet at 0.43 psi. Blow-off at the blow-off hydrant. 4-inch pipe, again 1,845 feet, 1.2 feet, and psi was at 50.52 psi. The 6-inch PVC pipe, 935 feet at the blow-off, 0.9 feet at 0.04 psi. Total pipe loss about 1.29 feet and about 0.56 psi. Based upon the pressure readings at the hydrant, the system is experiencing pressure losses well above that which would be associated with the pipe losses in elevation change. The low system pressures at the hydrant are approximately 30 psi, which is 19 psi below the calculated static pressure at that location, what they thought it would turn out to be. The flow required to reduce the pressure to the extent would have to be approximately 115 gallons per minute or 10,500 gallons per hour at the hydrant. This flow rate is almost 5 times higher than the peak hourly flow rate recorded at the master meter and is equal to the average day demand of the entire system. The equivalent pipe size that would result in 19 psi pressure losses at 20 gallons per minute is approximately 2 inches in diameter. So basically they're saying that the pipe isn't flowing the right amount of water through it, so it's probably got a bunch of stuff built up inside. Potential issues that may be resulting in these lower than expected pressures. Inaccurate pipe system assumptions. In other words, they're thinking that's a 4-inch, between the 8 and the 6, and it may only be 2. I mean, that's what it's flowing at right now. We know that the beginning is an 8-inch pipe, and we're pretty confident that the PVC, high pressure PVC in the back is 6. So the big unknown is that that 1,200 and something feet in the middle. That's the oldest line. The only way to verify the actual pipe size and material is to excavate the water mains. Since the equivalent water main size is estimated to be 2 inches, minor changes in the assumed system configuration will not make a large enough difference to account for the pressure reduction. Part number 2, partially closed valve in the system. There are several valves on the system, all of which should be checked to see if they are fully open. The partially closed valve can reduce a significant pressure loss downstream in the system. Number 3, obstruction in the pipeline. Although unlikely, there have been instances where obstructions such as a rock or pieces of wood have been left in the water main from time of construction. They will act similar to a partially closed valve. Number 4, air binding. There are no air release valves in the water system. All air relief is through individual water services. When consumers open up their tap in their home, accumulation of air reduces the cross-section area of the pipe available for the water to pass through, resulting in pressure losses downstream of the accumulated air. It has been reported that the system pressures are temporarily improved in the area after the system is flushed. Flushing would reduce or eliminate any air in the main thereby restoring the cross-sectional area of the water flow. Air relief would be evident at that time of flushing. Number 5, reduced pipe diameter due to tubularization. So since all water mains are either PVC or AC, tubularization will not occur, thereby eliminating this issue. If there is any iron or galvanized pipe in the system, tubularization is certainly a possible flow restriction. The only way to verify pipe material is through excavation again. Number 6, in-home booster pumps. So in-home booster pumps can reduce the pressure in the main depending on how many their pumping rates. It has been reported that such pumps exist within some of the households, and an inventory of those pumps and capabilities and capacities should be undertaken by the town. In-home booster pumps require approval from the Clinton County Health Department and water provider. Number 7, supply pressure reduction. The water supply from the town of Plattsburgh passes through the meter vault, which contains a flow meter and a double check valve. Each of these pieces of equipment impart a pressure loss to the system. The meter has a maximum pressure loss of 4 psi, while the double check valve has a 5 psi loss. The estimated water pressure at the pressure relief valve is reduced to 61 psi on the upstream side of the pressure reducing valve. Under high flow conditions upstream of the meter vault, the line pressure at the meter vault may be lower, resulting in further reduction of available pressure at the pressure reducing valve. Regardless of the above, the pressure on the downstream side of the pressure relief valve is 55 psi, so the available supply pressure is not reducing the pressure in the Macey Lane system to levels recorded. If necessary, the double check valve can be removed and replaced with a spool piece pending Clinton County Health Department approval. Removal will provide an additional 5 pounds at the pressure relief valve. System testing. The town of Plattsburgh attempted to perform a flow test at the hydrant. No measurements were taken due to the relatively low amount of flow. It was assumed that a piddle reading would be less than 10 psi. Recommendations. That's where we get to your letters, okay? Based upon the above information, it is recommended that the town approach this issue in 2 phases, or one of the 2 phases if we do both of them. I should say both phases if we do the bottom one. Phase 1. Install 475 plus feet of linear water main between the blow-off hydrant and the intersection. The pipe size can be 6 inches to match the existing, or 8 inches if there is ever the intent to replace the existing mains in the future to provide fire flow. Once installed, the pressure reducing valve setting should be increased approximately 5 psi to provide a little more system pressure. As part of the project, and since it will be necessary to excavate in the intersection to make the required connections, all piping to the former water supply should be cut and capped. A rough estimate of cost for this installation is about $60,000 to $75,000. Okay, so basically that would be like, as a board discussion. I don't want to speak for everybody. I'll just mention that what we talked about after we talked going to the second phase, that first, if we did the first phase, it'd be like putting a Band-Aid on it, really. Okay, we're not sure that it's gonna do what it's intended to do because it's twofold. The 475 feet plus a linear pipe, and then that 6-inch pipe back to the 4-inch, or we're hoping it's 4-inch main there, may give you the pressure increase and the volume, but it does nothing for that 4-inch in between, that big 1,200 and something feet of linear pipe on the main. And the second part of that would be to increase the pressure in 5-pound increments, 5 psi pound increments, until they got the desired pressure down there. Now with that, if we do that, you have a tendency that that's an old line, and it's not operating right now up to, we believe it's 4-inch, and it's only operating up to 2-inch, what they're saying, that it could stress it enough to continue to break it and break it and break it, where you guys in your water district may very well be spending expenditures to constantly fix it, okay? Those get doubled or even tripled sometimes if it's in the winter, because then everything's froze and the ground's froze and it's harder to work on. So the second phase, or the second part of this, would be to replace the existing 1,230 linear plus feet of 4-inch water main from the PRV to the intersection. It is then recommended that the 8-inch pipe be used for this section, as it will permit the installation of hydrants, and rough estimate of cost for that installation is between $150,000 and $175,000. So if you're looking at spending $75,000 really to put a Band-Aid on it, and for $150 to $175,000 you could have the whole system upgraded with all new pipe, that's the board. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but the majority of the board's decision was, if we're going to do that, we might as well just replace it all, and then you got a system that's good for 75 to 100 years with relatively, hopefully, no problem. Okay. What we had looked at doing was using part of the American Rescue Fund money, the ARPA funds. There's a little over 50 something, 53, 56,000 in your unallocated fund reserve. We don't want to deplete that whole thing in case there was issues down there that needed to be fixed. So we had talked about using 30,000 of that unallocated fund reserve, and then subsidizing it with the American Rescue Fund. So that's going to pay for probably over 2/3 of the project. At again, no cost to you, other than it's federal money and it's all tax dollars, at the federal level. But for the district itself, it would not be an increase. Now, with this, we can take your existing lateral lines that are from your homes, cut them, put them back into the new mains, forego the inspection fee and the hookup charge. If, when we are doing this, you would like a new lateral line from the main to your homes, which is recommended, then we can't use taxpayers' dollars on private property. That would be totally up to you as individuals, whether you wanted to or not, and decide at that time what kind of line you got, because I have no idea whether you got copper lines going from the main to your house, or PVC, or old black iron lines. It could be anything, all right? But again, your lateral lines do change what your pressures and volumes are, depending on, if they're old, say, cast iron lines or whatever. They could be plugged like probably the one in the 1,200 foot section is. So again, that's totally up to you guys. It would be you as homeowners to decide that. But at the time that we're doing the line, we can connect a new one in and inspect it and forego the connection fees. So that is recommended, but again, it's up to you. I'll leave it up to the floor now on different questions. I will go over, you've all got a copy of the letter. If you want me to read that, I can do it, but basically it says what these last 2 pages were. I can go over what LaBerge gave us for an estimate to oversee the project, and that's the complete oversee of it, the bidding of it, and making sure that they're doing the inspections as it is put in the ground, and make sure it's done up to the engineering specs. And basically, they would oversee that project for us. They do it for a living, we don't, and we would defer to their expertise to make sure that the construction guys, whoever gets a bid, would be doing it. So I guess, I don't want to speak for everybody. Do you, anybody else have anything to add?
One of the things is if you do go with a new system completely, you can put in fire suppression, which is going to give you a reduction in your fire insurance. Where if you stay with and just patch it in, you're not able to do that. So.
I'm glad you reiterated that, because I read it so fast I forgot, and I wanted to bring that back up. He's absolutely right. In a 6-inch line or a 4-inch line, there is not enough water flow to create a fire flow. So if we went with 8-inch, like we're talking about, all the way down to the section of 6-inch, you would have the capability to have fire hydrants placed down through there. And at that time, your ISO rating would then change because you would have hydrants within 500 feet of your home. By putting one at the end, it does a dual service. It's a break between the 6-inch and the 8-inch, but it also serves the back cul-de-sac. I've been in the fire department for 37 years, so running 1,000 feet of 5-inch is nothing in that regard. But you run all the way from the main hydrant that there is there now. That's South Plattsburgh District, by the way. All the way down in, we'd have to probably put at least 2 pumpers in between just to try to boost the pressure back up due to the friction loss in the 5-inch line. It would help, like Howard said, on your insurance rates because ISO sets the standard for the insurance rates. I'll tell you, when I was fire chief and any major business was getting built in the town of Plattsburgh or Schuyler Falls, the first thing they wanted to see was what our ISO rating was, which affects what your ISO rating is. Okay? So, good point.
I just have a minor thing to say is, I would like to see the project broken up into 2 phases. I'd like to see possibly that work on the backside of Macey Lane done under phase 1. Let's step back, take a look at the volume of the water at that point, then proceed on to phase 2. Because time-wise, the time element of this, it's a major project. And it'll be a major project in terms of repaving the road when this is done. And that's just my feeling on it, but go ahead.
Okay, the only thing I would caution on that is this. If we break it up, which you could do, and like I said, you don't know what that 4 or 2-inch line that is traveling through right now, that's what they estimated that is about 2 inches, okay? You don't know if that will hold up. So we could have major issues through that line, and it could happen in the middle of the winter, or it could happen late fall, or it could never happen. Like Mr. Facto says, that could fix the system. Unfortunately, we will never know unless we do just that one section, and we keep increasing the pressures by 5 psi until we get to where it needs to be in the back, or it breaks before we get there. By doing that, you're not going to have the hydrant flow, so you're not going to get hydrants in there, and you're not going to have a reduction in insurance costs for your fire or your home insurance. And secondly, we would have to rebid everything out. So we'd have to bid, change the contracts, okay, which they will do. Change the contracts to just do the back section. We would have to put it out in the paper and put it out to bid for the phase 1. They would have to complete all of phase 1, and then we would have to rebid if it didn't work and go through the whole process again with engineering and the bidding process for the second phase of the project. Every time that you rebid something and go back over the same stuff rather than doing it at once, it's always cheaper to do a little bit more at the beginning than it is to do the whole process over again. And time-wise, you're looking at probably, going into a year and a half or 2 before you really know what was going on. It's feasible. I'm not taking anything against him. I understand that he's looking at Mr. Facto's looking at the fact that may work, and that could be the fix, and that's the end of it. It still will not do 2 things. It won't give you fire flow protection, and it won't give you a guarantee on what that main line, that 1,200 and something feet, 1,290 feet, 1,250 feet of initial line will do in the coming years.
If you dig up everything, what does that look like for our road?
Well, as far as the water main, I'm gonna guess that it runs down one side of that road.
Yeah, I'm guessing it runs on the other side of it.
Okay.
Yeah, from your house, yes, the other side.
Yeah, I like that. That's my side of the street.
So,
This our
yeah,
lawn is looking pretty.
so again, yes, it's not gonna make it untravelable or untraversable. It
Yeah.
will definitely be an inconvenience for a while. You are gonna be dealing with the noises of the construction and everything else.
But what about running the pipe back over to the other side? So if you're gonna run it on one side, right, then don't you have to run it under the road or
Yes,
somehow?
that section by the loop where the old well house used to
Yeah,
be, they
yeah.
have to go underneath that section of road.
Okay.
Right, which they could do one of two ways. They could either push underneath the road,
Mhm.
or they could trench it,
Yeah.
and then open it up. So you have maybe a 3-hour window, a 4-hour window of the road getting dug up, the pipe being put in, and I don't know, maybe say, I'm guessing a couple hours to put everything back together. I know that on River Street next week, I'm gonna put out notices over there because there's a line that has to be cut, trenched across. You can't push it to a resident over there. We're gonna put out flyers to everybody down on Review Street so they are aware. We contacted emergency OES so that they're aware, fire and ambulance, that road could be impassable for a short time. And we also contacted the school district to let them know that if they're dropping the kids off, that it could be an interference depending on what time of the day they get done filling that road back in. But those are general construction issues that arise every time that you work on a road. To you guys, basically, it's gonna be your issue because it's your development, it's where you live. It's not major thorough through only to you guys, so. Yes, sir.
I've lived there since '74. That whole development started back in '72. The lines in the first 24 homes was 4-inch. The lines from the main to the houses were 3/4 inch copper. My home, built in '74, subsequent to having it built, our shut-off valve was sticking about this high above the ground. I talked to the owner of the water system at that time, which was subsequent to Philion. I don't remember who it was. And I mentioned to them, look how high this is sticking up. They said, we'll take care of that. Came through with a sledgehammer and pounded it right down. Okay? Ever since then, our water level is down.
Yeah, because it probably
If I turn
take the
on,
copper line.
that's right. So my question is, reference to Reggie's statement of doing the second phase first, of where it's 6-inch versus the 4-inch. I'd say do the whole thing completely at one point. Don't break it up, et cetera, et cetera. My feeling is it's the 4-inch line that's causing problems for the first 24 homes. Also, from the shut-off valve to my house, I see no reason to change the copper piping there. As far as changing that shut-off valve and making sure that it's okay when they do the lines, if and when they do them, is that an expense to me for that shut-off valve, or is that town?
I'm gonna guess that if they had to replace you're talking about your street shut off on the main?
No,
The house shut off.
house shut-off,
Everyone has a
the
It's
house,
out in the
the house, my house,
They call it a street shut off. It only goes to your property?
pardon me?
The one going just to your property?
Yes,
Yeah, that's called the street shut off. So that if they had to shut your water off because you had a major leak in your house, they didn't have to shut the whole system down. It just shuts it off at the main to your lateral line. Is that the street shut off you're talking about?
yes.
Yeah.
So those, they'll look at them. I'll make sure that when I talk to LaBerge, I don't want to go out on a limb and say they're going to replace all those, but most of the major part of the main that is part of this cost is replacing that stuff.
Is
So
replacing the
I
shut-off valve for the
can't, I
house.
won't tell you that on the record for
No,
sure
no, I
until I
understand
find
that.
out for sure.
I understand
And if it's not part of this project, okay, that would be an expense that the town of Plattsburgh doesn't cover under operation and maintenance charges. So if they had to replace the street shut off, it would go back to the homeowner.
that, even though
But
it's
we
in-
can
it's
look
in the-
at any of them that they believe are not operating correctly
even though it's in their right of way, et
and
cetera,
see
et
if we
cetera.
can't get that incorporated into the project. I just don't wanna go on the record on the prices that he gave me.
I understand, I realize
Without
that.
knowing
Yeah, that's-
exactly, cause
Yeah.
I read the whole thing to you and he didn't say anything
Right,
other than replacing the line itself. But they are gonna have to work on the laterals, and they are gonna have to reconnect them in. So normally what happens, I know when the town of Plattsburgh did that on Ruger Street over where, but where Calvin lived,
Right.
they were taking care of that as they went through, but we can look at that as far as a request. It's all up to you guys and us, what we wanna do to the system. I mean, the engineer ain't gonna care whether he puts that in the
That's right,
engineering,
exactly.
and the bidder is gonna accept the bid no matter what we put in there for work, so.
Question for you, if you do the 8-inch line, does that get rid of one of the deadheads? Does it come back around on?
What it
connect
does is
itself?
it actually loops the system at the cul-de-sac. So when you have an 8-inch main off of our Summit Road right down to the hydrant at the end. Unfortunately, the homes that were built and the apartments on the end went on wells, okay? I can sit here and say now that I can believe they should have been part of the water system because they were right there, but again, what it basically boils down to is your water district lines. Okay, and apparently in order to get wells there, and I haven't researched it, that's a topic I can look at, but the boundaries of your water district is what decides whether somebody is responsible to the water district or not, whether they want to be or not. They don't have to hook into it, and they don't have to pay, for water usage, but they would pay a percentage of debt service and things of that nature because they are a lot in that water system, if that makes sense to you. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. But
The thing about the water shut off, because the neighbor next to me had to have one replaced, the water district, which is technically all of us sitting here, it comes out of that money, but from the shut off to your house, you personally would be responsible if it had to be replaced. Cause the shut off in the neighbors, when they found out it was leaking, it was also not open all the way. And that would be something possibly to make sure they check to see if those
Absolutely.
shut offs are open all the.
right, and without digging them up and looking at them and seeing that they did go to test, the one part I read in there where they were worried that maybe some of those street shut-offs weren't open all the way.
That's what the neighbors
And they
said.
did check them, and they didn't wanna break them off, but they were open. Yeah, what the max they were allowed.
They checked mine, they said it's wide open, but you turn your water in your lawn, you can't get any water in the house.
I know, I've heard
So
people,
it's
I've
part
heard
of the
stories.
shut-off valve is limiting the amount of volume of water that goes through it.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
there's a
I
problem
heard,
with my shut-off, I know that.
heard the stories where I
100%.
flush the toilet and I can't get water out of the sink, you know what I mean?
I used to
So,
get 'em every day.
again, it's been a long time that you guys have been having problems down there. We have the opportunity at this point in time to actually pay for a project. The ARPA money, we're trying to spread that out as best we can. The other issue with the ARPA money is that we, basically, when it first started, we had 2 years to, recognize what projects we're going to use it on and get it spent within a 2-year project line. They finally realized with what's going on that wasn't even feasible because we can't even get the materials that we need to do this, or I should say the contractors can. So they extended it, and now we have a 4-year timeline. All right, but we're a year into that almost. All right, Mr. Browski has been to multiple meetings here. I've been working on this since I first got in January of 20, and we're finally to this point. And we're gonna Morrisonville water rebuild for 2.5 years, and I'm just getting to the point where we're gonna probably be doing the same thing with that one, and have an informational meeting like this so that people are advised of what it is. Unfortunately, there's not enough ARPA money to cover that differential in that project, so they're looking at a bond, and it's taken me, like I said, around 2.5 years to get roughly $2.5 million worth of grants and a $5.5 million bond at 1.7% just before the interest rates just took a hike. I was right down to the last 24 hours. So, I mean, I hate to say there's a lot that goes into these. We're all volleying for the same services right now because of the ARPA money and infrastructure money that will be coming out to the state level. I'd like to see anything, but I'm putting in for it, okay? That is going to be spent on clean water. So every, little village or town or city in the United States, when that federal money drops out, is gonna be vying for all the same supplies, which is increasing the price of everything right now. And there's enough work to go around that they're not bidding them low, alright? So, the longer we wait, unfortunately, the more the price goes up. So,
Now, we wanted water a long time ago, so we could have the switch over to the town.
Mhm.
And that was like a 30 years. Is there any grants out there to try to get that reduced from us
The only
in
thing
this
I-
project?
the only thing I looked at, because it's completed, so you can't get grants on something that's completed, unfortunately. But what we can look at, and what I talked to Mr. Dabrowski about, was looking to see, before the interest rates go up astronomically, I think you're at 4 point something%, or right around 4 something%. We could look at refinancing that bond, or doing a new bond at a lower interest rate, because the interest rates are down. But they just raised the prime by a whole 0.5%, so it's 0.75%. If we wait much longer on that, it's gonna, by the time you end up with the expense of the paperwork to do a new bond, it may not be reasonable, but that's something that we can look into and throw some numbers back and forth between the bonding companies and find out whether there is some savings there. You have, I think 20-something years left on that bond.
I don't remember what the total
I
was
have,
on
I have the paperwork on it. I think it might take me a while to find it, but I think it was about 23 years. I think it's in the big.
Yeah, that would make sense, right, about that. I just don't remember what the total bond was.
Hang on. I found it faster than I thought, and better than I thought it was. So 10/15/15 is when it started. You're at 4.25%. Your principal that year was $10,797.55. The interest was $14,025, and the debt service was $24,822.55. So I can go down through all these numbers. Basically, this thing's pulled off in October 15th of 2034. So you got what, 20?
Got a lot of
12
interest
years?
on that. Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's like the interest
12
is
years?
more.
Just like your mortgage.
yeah.
But
But
was-
every point you go down, you're gonna see a
Yeah.
substantial reduction.
Yeah,
As your years of service go down, naturally, the outstanding principal drops and your interest drops. I mean, the last year of this contract, your interest is only gonna be $1,011, you know what I'm saying? Cause you pay it, they make you pay off all the interest, they want their money first, and then you start paying on the bigger part of the principal. But, that's something that I looked at, and that's why, like I said, I had this, and I had, Mary pull it for me, but we can look at that. We can, if that's something that you're interested with, I didn't wanna make the decision for all of you, but it's a good point. I mean, before the interest rates go
Yeah.
any much higher than what they are,
well,
I
I
think
just
they're
think now
only
that
gonna
we're
go up.
talking about all of this, there should be maybe something to look into that.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm gonna guess most of them are out 3% over prime, so we'll see how that. I mean, you're at 4.25, so we'd have to look.
A lot of the houses, the shut off, you cannot see in any way.
no.
I know the town's got a map up there to where each homeowner can get, cause there's measurements on your house, comes out on 2 points. So they know where the shut off is if something came up. Cause I bet you there isn't about a third that might be able to see where it's at.
Right,
The
normally
rest of
they'll
it-
just bring a metal detector out
I
with
have
them
no
and they
clue.
scan the front of your yard and they know
Because
how
I know
many
he's got a
feet
map
off it's supposed to be,
exactly.
because that is, again, a set dimension off the main where the shut off is. And they just scan that area until they find it. It doesn't take them long, usually about 5-10 minutes. I've seen it at fire calls where Yep, I'm like, I don't know how you found that, I'm like, I'm metal detector. I was like, okay, that works. But, they're not all visible, that's for sure.
Right, there's-
I could tell you in the village, you can't hardly see any of it. Mowing the lawns and dirt off the sides of the road from sanding and stuff, it would build up over the top of them. But they find them pretty readily. And that's on their side. That, locating a street shut off, they don't charge extra for locating it. That's on there, whatever time it takes you. Yes, sir.
Couple questions for you. First of all, so I'm led to believe then that on the 6-inch PVC section, there'll be no changes to the laterals there. So really, the lateral question only applies if they replace the 4-inch section. And then only to the people who live there then.
You assume correct.
Okay.
That line won't be touched.
Assuming the full option 2 happens, so 8-inch main and then connect the loop around, what are we talking about for real change to the water pressure?
Well, it's supposed to bring it up to that 50 to 50.
So roughly double what it is, or
Yeah.
close to double?
And,
Okay.
and it will
And more
it
flow
will
too.
guarantee you to stay over that 20 psi, which is needed by fire flow and what the. See, that's regulated by Clinton County Health Department, what your pressure is at your home. If it's under 20 psi, then it's really not legit.
Right.
You're supposed to, you can put, like they were saying, you can, and some of the homes down there have, put a pressure pump in-home pressure pump to boost that. And that's permissible. But again, that's only with the okay from the Clinton County Health Department. You would have to apply for a permit for that and do it. If this goes through, we're not gonna, one of the things when I was talking around with bars about this, the engineer, I said, we don't want to have any issues with that. We're hoping that anybody that has one of those will no longer need it.
Right. Okay.
There's one that
What's
did
the
that.
time frame as far as the town or whoever's responsible make a decision to go with improvement of the system? What are we talking about a time frame?
Okay, that's a good question. We can move forward on this, and because our meeting is until the 24th, so we can move forward on this month in May, on the 24th, and approve the engineer to go forward with the project. It would have to be put out to bid, and then usually, I'm gonna guess on a project this size, it would be about a 3-week bid process. Then we would take the sealed bids in, we would open them here on the public record, we would send those sealed bids back out to LaBerge. They would look at the sealed bids to rank them on what they believe is the best bid, and then down through to the least best bid, and then ultimately it would be up to the town board to decide what bid we went with. So that could happen within the next 2 months. Now that's just to get it going.
Right,
Then
I understand that.
it would be on the contractors and the
As far as the
bids to start the
homeowners
project.
hearing the progress of this action, you hear it through the town meetings, et cetera, et cetera?
A lot of it you would hear at the town meetings, and I'm pretty good usually, and I'll go on a limb and say that you'll back me, Mr. Sprowski, if I have something new that has come up. I'm always, either at a work session or at the meeting, I'll reiterate, parts of it after we talked about it and bring it back up on public meeting. We are in the process, as you can see, we just got a new 360 camera to record these and put them on ourselves, on the website. So we are now capable to place these on our town website. Prior to that, say about a week ago, the website was so outdated that I tried to get one video put on there when I first got in January. It cost me cost you guys or us, $800 and something to compress the files and get them small enough to put them on the website. That was the only one I ever did. I said that's not cost effective. So now this website, we have pretty much unlimited ability to, even if we went 2-3 hours on a meeting, we'll be able to post it. You are the trial people on this, because I said I wanted to try it before we came to our monthly meeting, so I'm gonna call Pat Garso, who is in charge of our new website, after this, and he will pull it off for us and put it on the website. That website is about probably a third transferred right now, okay? It's massive amounts of information that he has to, it was way beyond my scope. I was like, how come it's taking you so long? You've been working on this for 3 weeks. He goes, you have no idea how many files that are part of that old website that need to be transferred so we don't lose anything. He goes, because I'm not making the decision on what you want to keep and what you don't. Even the deleted, poster files or all that stuff are still in there. So he goes, those all have to be transferred. And he goes, my system's operating about 10% of 100% of its capability. He goes, it's actually your system down here that's operating so slow to transfer the files over. And he goes, it took 3 days to transfer just one department of files over. So it's much more than I thought it would be to transfer that website. I apologize for the inconvenience of the midstream on that, but once we get it switched over, it's going to be so interactive for the residents. We're finally going in at least the 21st century, okay? To have you access, you'll be able to, as far as sporting events and stuff like that, you'll be able to fill them out right there. Register your children online and take care of it, and then it creates, say it's futsal, it creates that whole thing. Makes it nice for Sam at next year. You can go to that and say, okay, this one didn't apply, this one didn't apply. The deadline's in 2 days, maybe I give them a call and see if they just missed it, whatever. So it's going to be a plus. It'll allow me, the non-tech guy, to actually go in there and to update some of the stuff, like you were saying, rather than just getting at the meeting. I can hopefully, in my time, get on there and give you guys some updates on some other projects that are going on. So it should be a win-win.
Just a quick question. The 4 feeding a double 6, in my experience, I've rode hundreds and hundreds of miles with New Pratt in Montreal. You can't feed a double 6 with a 4. You're
No, I know.
asking for trouble. Cavitate. You're gonna destroy that line.
Yeah.
So you gotta go with the 8.
Yeah, and this has got an 8 down to 4, back to 6.
You can't do it. My question is, disconnection, reconnection of an existing line, is covered. If you wanna replace your line, is disconnection and reconnection covered? According to the letter, it's not.
Right, and as far as I'm talking to LaBerge, that the disconnection, reconnection would be covered on part of this project. I will go on a
This says
limb.
on an existing line, it says it's covered.
Right,
If I wanna go with a new line, is disconnection and reconnection covered? The
I
letter's not
got
clear
you.
on that.
Alright, so that's probably a oversight, because they just figured that, most people would keep their existing lines, but it's gonna be no more work to reconnect a new line, other than you having to pay
Right.
for somebody to put that new line in from your home back to the street shut off, but to actually the connection, from your experience, from what you're saying, is no more
Right.
money, one way or
But is
the other.
that covered, if I run a new line to my
I would put that
residence?
in here. I'll go on a limb as long as the board is good with that. That's no more cost.
Okay, so that's covered.
Yeah,
As long as the new line is put in at the time of the construction of the.
Right.
And the letter states that,
you're right.
yes.
Are you saying that, the way you talked about putting this different diameter lines together, it's not gonna work, or the way it is now?
You can't take, so right now, I don't know why and who thought that this would ever work, going from an 8 to a 4
To a 6.
to a 6. It's
Well,
like trying to crap through a straw.
Yeah.
You can't, it doesn't work. Now, your option 1 is, well, let's make a loop. And so now instead of going from an 8 to a 4 to a 6, you're going from an 8 to a 4 to 2 6s.
Yeah.
That's not gonna help anybody except for maybe the person that's off from that new 6 that you're gonna connect, the guy on the back corner.
So option 2 is good?
You have to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
You
agree.
absolutely have to.
I
You're
agree,
gonna
yeah,
destroy that 4-inch
and-
line.
This is where my fire department experience hurts me, because I'm used to dealing with pressurized water, and this is not pressurized water. This is gravity fed water. So if you think of it like if you have 2 oil drums, double oil drums in your house, you only feed 1 oil drum, but gravity equalizes the 2 liquids, okay? And in a water line, the water tank being the highest point, okay, it's supposed to equal out those pressures all the way through the system, no matter what size it is. But you do get into restriction and water.
Your example works, but when you start putting taps on those drawings and you're drawing them
I'm with you,
now,
100%.
it's a whole different.
I'm just saying what the engineer came back to me with.
Yeah.
And that was a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around, because I agree with you, that was my whole thing. How the hell did they think that,
Doesn't work.
just the friction loss alone, he goes, you don't have pressure. He goes, you're not getting that friction loss. He goes, you are gonna lose some volume, amount of flow that is allowed through that 4-inch pipe versus what's allowed to a 6. So he goes, fire flows, you're 100% right, you know, you're never gonna be able to get the fire flow that you would need to put a hydrant in. 8 inches, the minimum you're gonna do that with, so.
Yeah, no, option 2, I gotta cut out, guys.
All right,
Have fun.
Do you
I
live on the
appreciate
street?
The ARC has a
I
whole.
thought it was that, yeah.
so,
I'm like, I know, I'm the mayor on the street, I don't recognize him.
So number
That's
seven,
us. Okay, that's you? Okay.
all right, thanks for coming.
so number 79 that you referred to, that's the last house on the end of the line?
No,
No,
my house.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm the one who volunteered to have it set up.
I see.
Way to go, Rick.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we needed to have,
Yeah,
a midstream,
The neighbor next door to me, the blue house, has half the water pressure than I do.
Really?
It comes to theirs house first,
Yeah,
then it does mine. Still, it's crappy, but
oh, well.
this
Well,
is
good
it.
luck and hope you get through and do it.
This is something affects everyone that's sitting here. That thing states about, I think, 30,000 the water district, which is us, pays. You seen it, the bird's seen it, cause I gave him the blueprint from the town. The approved subdivision water lines, when it was approved by Andy Abdullah, was 6-inch all the way through and a continued loop. They haven't been able to find whoever approved the changes to put that 4-inch and not continue to loop.
4 inch,
So
4
it
inch
was-
was put in
it was
72,
supposed to be a 6-inch, I got the approved subdivision map,
and for 72?
yes, Andy Abdullah signed.
Well, that was Philly.
So,
and,
I'm
Allen.
saying you,
Yeah.
but I'm not meaning you, I'm meaning the town. The town let that problem happen. The town helped create our water district problem when Garrow's was gonna abandon the system. You weren't in office, but the exact word of the one that was sitting there was, let them abandon the system. But they had no help for us. I know he was involved, and I think your wife was highly involved in getting the water district set up. So I don't feel the water district, because I know the town has some money. I'm not saying they pay for all of it, but to me, the town should help pay for at least probably half of that 30.
I can't do it.
The town has no reserve fund.
No, the town has lots of reserve fund, but I cannot spend money out of the general fund for a special district, it's against the law.
Yeah.
I can't take money that everybody's contributed to in the town and it's called gifting, and gift it to a special water district, it's illegal.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to do that. That's what I was telling you, with the ARPA funds, being that they were dropped on us, there was no guidance on what projects, there was, don't get me wrong. It was a 4-corner box originally, okay? They said they wanted it on water infrastructure, sewer, high-speed internet, what am I missing? There was 4. Water, sewer, high-speed internet.
The water.
We could spend it on, the town web, which we didn't spend any on that, but you could spend it on upgrading the town web system so that when you had a pandemic, you could keep everybody in the loop, natural disasters, that kind of thing. Now they've opened it up where, and that was part of the change, like I said, they went from a 2-year to a 4-year for these projects. And the other change was that they assumed that every town, village, or city, or anywhere in the United States, would had $1 million loss due to COVID. Our ARPA money is going to be a little over 500,000. So we got 250-something thousand last July. We'll get another 250-something thousand this July. So we'll end up with about $500,000. With that, if you don't do your own calculation and you assume that that $1 million loss, then it opens it up for general use of expenditures throughout the town. So we can use it for paving, we could use it to upgrade the garage up there, we could use it for water districts, sewer, we can use it for almost anything now, if you stay under that. Ours is only $500,000, so it's way under that. Excuse me, it was $10 million loss. So, we're way under that. So, after talking to the associations of towns, and I know Reggie took that same webinar I did, they said if you don't assume that $10 million loss, then you're crazy, because it just opens it up for, to stay under the guidance and guidelines of the ARPA money. So to circle back a little bit and not sound like Jen Psaki, but we never had, this town never had the opportunity to take money like you were asking for out of the general fund. We could do it, but you would have to pay that money back within the year. So if we started in January and took, say, that $30,000 out of there, we would have to put that $30,000 back in the general fund by the means of a bond or whatever, or recouping it from you guys at that special district. It has to be put back in that general fund within the year. You can borrow it, but you can't just spend it on a special district. Does that
Trying to
make
save
sense?
us money.
Well, maybe if we
Back in
redo that.
72, when they,
Go ahead.
72, when they started that development, it was all private property. I don't think the town had any responsibility on any of that at that point in time.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and that was, I should have addressed that too. The reason why, to my understanding, I wasn't here, but from what I now know after 2.5 years of doing this job, that was a private water system. Okay,
Right.
Yarrows owned that water system.
No, he didn't. He
No.
bought it from the previous owner.
Right, but he still owned it. Okay, at that point in time, it was Yarrows' water
Right,
system.
at the time it was
Right.
abandoned, he was
Okay.
gonna abandon.
So the town can't just take over a private water
Right,
district.
that's the reason we had.
So
to
the
do it.
only way the town could have took that over is if he would abandon it. If he abandoned it, then the town has the responsibility to get you back water. So then we could have took that for a token dollar, okay? Because there has to be a monetary value to change property of any kind. And for $1, the town could have took that system back over. But without him going through the full abandonment, there was nothing legally this town could have did while he was still ownership of. Just like I can't go to your house and say, I want your garage.
So then he wanted
I couldn't we couldn't go to his Garrow and say, we want your water district and you're giving it to us. If he abandoned it, then a bunch of abandonment laws kicked in which would have allowed the town to take over. Then we could have worked with the bond,
Yeah.
like I've been working on for the Morrisonville Water
Yeah.
District. I'm not saying at that point in time they'd had the ambition to do it, but they may have, and like I said, then you could have, looked for CDBG grant or USDA or the WIA grants or, there's multiples. I've even put in for congressional spending for the Morrisonville Water Project. I heard from one senator's office, I'm hoping that one goes through, we'll know in a year. And we can get the WIA, but we got the other two. And there's even the Northeastern Regional Border Grant, there's a bunch of them out there. I mean, they're not gonna fall in your lap, you gotta work for them, and I got stacks of paper that high that I've been working on over 2.5 years to get us to where we are on all 3 of these projects, and we're all working on, trying to do something with Ricks and Ave up there too. But,
He was
It's-
never gonna abandon it, he wanted the money, so that's, if he abandoned, that would have been the best bet.
that would have been the
But
best bet for
he,
you guys.
we knew he never would,
And it was the only,
and the bond was the only choice at that time.
Because there's only one lot on that street that's big enough to dig a well according to the Department of Health.
Correct.
Mormons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, I wasn't involved with that, I can't, really say what could have, may have, would have happened there, and I can only
how
explain
much
to
are
the
we
best of
paying?
my
We're
knowledge,
paying a lot of money,
their reason.
no, we're still paying.
So,
Well, thank you.
if, so everybody here is in agreement,
Yes.
moving on, yes, sir.
No, I'm all in favor of option 2. I'm just curious, what would the time frame for project completion be? Any idea? I mean, I know that it's very uncertain. Are we
Right.
talking about this calendar year possibly, or next?
It could be late this year, it would depend upon, I would say, working with the engineer and the contractor that gets the bid, saying, okay, if we're getting in October and it's gonna extend the length of this project because of cold weather and
Right.
such, and it's cheaper to start it in the spring,
Yeah.
then that could be the option that we start first thing
I was
next
just
spring.
curious.
Depending on the bidding process, and we're early in the summer, and depending on, like Mr. Facto had said, what companies are already committed to different projects already and whether they can fit it in. It could feasibly go, late summer, early fall. This relatively, although, you say it's a big project, this is a
To us, it's
minor,
big, it's small.
minor
Yes.
project,
Yeah.
Murnane or one of those
Yeah.
companies that size that does it. It's minimal to them.
Right.
I mean, we're looking at an $8.1 million project for the Morrisonville Water District. That's a big project, and they said, nope, no problem, 1 year, less than 1 year.
Okay.
We'd had that all done.
As far as
And that blew my mind. I figured it'd be a 2 or 2.5 year, start to go.
what news media or what source would they provide us with as homeowners to let us know, so we can tell them yes or no on whatever, and then request, like I'm gonna request a new, have them check that shut-off valve and replace if they have to. How will we hear about that?
All right, so we're in the middle of turning over this website, so it's interactive like that. As a matter of fact, each one of us will have our own emails on there, so you can email us directly.
Okay.
It'll have our name with our email by it, and as soon as you click on my name and email me, you can ask people in this town when they email me, I get back to them. Okay, it might be a day or two. Sometimes I can get it that same day, but I never let anybody hang. They may not like the answer I give them. Sometimes there's just things that I can't do. Like I was telling you, I still have to play by the rules that are handed to me, but I always tell them the truth, whether they like it or not. I can only tell them the truth and go from there and say, hey, we can work on what you want to accomplish, or I can't do it because there's nothing I can do about it, like I explained to you. But yeah, that would be a good way to reach out, and it would save me and the receptionist doing a bunch of letters like we did last time, but we just wanted to make sure, and Mr. Facto was adamant that we send letters out to everybody
Right.
rather than just put it on
Don't worry, we'll
the
get the mayor on
webpage
it.
and put it in the paper, because not everybody reads the paper, not everybody goes to the webpage. So at least we did our best to try to get everybody in the system in the know.
I'm pretty surprised. I figured more people would be
Yeah.
here tonight.
So you
but-
assume the rest of them agree to it?
Okay, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not here, I agree.
No,
Yeah,
in my,
I think we've got a quorum.
yeah,
According to the college, we have a quorum, we're good.
yeah. In my limited experience as a politician, usually it's the people that don't want something to show up that scream about it. It's not.
Oh, yeah, we're not screwed. We just want to hear
Most of us are all
about
in
it.
favor of it.
So I think everyone here pretty much says option 2.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So,
And if you could look into the
Yeah,
bond
that's
for the
option two,
water.
yes, ma'am, I will.
Because
It's
that's
written at the top here. I'll make
definitely-
myself a note as soon as I go back
Go
to
for
my
it.
Okay.
office.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. All right. Carol, you got the-
I don't know about that.